What are the advantages you can get that other teams might not be looking at? And so for the A's in the early 2000s, it was on base percentage. For I think in the NFL more recently, there's been a couple different ones. I actually think, people talk about how great Tom Brady is and Bill Belichick. I think one of the most brilliant things the Patriots have done in the last 10 years or so is they've simplified their playbook in a lot of ways to just have one word play calls that represent blocking schemes and route combinations for wide receivers. Like Tom Brady can say a word, and it's not necessarily just a hot route. It's a word. He'll go to the line of scrimmage without a play being called. One word explains everything, right? How can you be more efficient? And so I actually think there's an opportunity for Rick Spielman or other GMs to be the next Billy Beane because of this pandemic. And I want you guys to tell me if I'm an idiot here, okay?
Okay.
Tell me if I'm an idiot regardless.
Okay, yeah, no problem.
Yeah. Yep, got it.
I think the current market inefficiency in the NFL is the ability to unlock rookie players without seeing them in person or holding any sort of in-person practices. All these teams are going to be without OTAs, without mini camps, without being able to physically stand there and work with a cornerback, work with an offensive lineman, right? They're not going to be able to get the full speed reps they would in 11-on-11 practice drills. And even without the pandemic, practices are reduced now compared to 10 years ago anyways. Joe, when you first started covering Vikings football,
Well, 2-a-days in training camp, baby.
it was like full pad 2-a-days sometimes.
That's what Chile
right?
did.
And they'd be doing cardio and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And so like the less and less players are able to actually move around and a cornerback covering a wide receiver, who are the smartest, best teaching coaching staffs remotely? How are they getting those players up to speed on concepts, on play calls, on different things that like, you're never going to be able to simulate a wide receiver running a route and covering him.
Sure.
But can you get someone up to speed mentally on a playbook or up to speed on what they need to know to become a quality NFL football player and just be better prepared? I think there is a teaching race right now, and it's happening over Zoom calls. And whoever comes out of this, not only this year, but probably in years going forward, whoever comes out of this as the best teachers remotely is going to have a much better chance to win games, especially in September and October.
So I think you might be right as far as what Rick Spielman is thinking. I guess my question back to you is, do you think that Mike Zimmer and his staff can adjust enough to do what you're talking about? Because it seems to me that what you're talking about, and now Belichick is 68, so he's in his 60s. He is certainly not a young man, but what you're talking about seems to me would be somebody who is, and Belichick probably gets credit for this, is extremely adaptable at times. So is Zimmer, who has had his, sort of rules of defense in place for a long time, and I think it's a lot of intricate things. Can he dumb it down enough to make a kid like Jeff Gladney step in from day one at cornerback, which is an incredibly tough position, and be as successful as possible? The lack of hands-on with Mike makes me curious about that, Phil, because we were both at training camp. Mike's first year was 2014, right? And we both saw him in Mankato that summer in Xavier Rhodes' hip pocket. I thought almost constantly. Yeah. I've never seen a head coach give tutorials to an individual player, especially a new coach who ordinarily is trying to install a bunch of stuff. I've never seen a coach a head coach work that closely with one player as Mike did, and he did a great job. But it was all instruction in person. I like where you're going. I don't know if the veteran coaches across the board are the guys to successfully do what you're saying.
I'll give you another cross-sport example to baseball. So the biggest market inefficiency or the biggest area for getting a potential edge, I think the arms race has sort of caught up in this area, but for like 8 or 10 years, the amount of analytics and information coming in to front offices was, on a scale of 1 to 10 was a 10. And the ability to digest that information among players and coaches was like a 2, right?
Right.
You got all this information coming in. We got all these analytics and, spin rates and all this stuff.
Right.
But you're trying to communicate with 25-year-old humans or 19-year-old humans. And now I think each organization, has like a liaison in the clubhouse that's able to say, listen, all right, here's what you need to know. Okay.
Right.
Who's the here's what you need to know guy for the Vikings? You've got 15 rookies. Okay. There's so much to digest before you even get into the physical stuff. Who is listen, guys, we're not going to be able to have meetings in film rooms. Like
right.
can you have a film study session over a Zoom call that resonates with a player? Do you have teachers on your coaching staff that can catch these guys up to speed? Or are you sitting there as a coaching staff saying, well, I guess we're just screwed. We can't get these guys in until
Well,
August or whatever.
I think the Vikings have had those people in place before, and an analytics department. I think some of them through the years have left the team because of frustrations. And before Collar left, I think it was right after Combine, he did a really interesting in-depth column on this and how Mike has sort of balked, which is not surprising, how Mike has sort of balked at the amount of information that these people can generate and basically show you what to do. Here's the issue. I think as long as we think about this as who's the guy or the department that can bring the information to this guy and then that guy goes to that guy. If you hear Falvey and Levine from the Twins talk about this, I think what's become crystal clear, and this progress is just going to take time in sports, and I think it's going pretty fast in baseball now compared to where it used to be. I think the reality is until it becomes part of your cultural day-to-day life as a team, like I don't think we can see it as Johnny and Larry get the information and then give it to Rick, who gives it to Mike, who then tries to tell the players, Mike takes 12% of that. I think when you have it basically be part of your culture of understanding, okay, here's 5 things. These 3 things we can use, no doubt, and the other 2 maybe a little bit, but not as much. So I think what you're saying, Phil, makes perfect sense. I think there are teams that are going to try to do this. I don't know that football is at the stage yet where it can really work as effectively as it should, which is what makes the coming months so intriguing.
Yeah.
Because how are you going to sit down with kids in their 20s and basically be on a Zoom call and basically say, this is what you need to do, but you're going to get no reps.
Right. And like ordinary, and again, I don't have the answers because if I had the answers, I wouldn't be here talking about this with you guys. I'd be working for an NFL team implementing some sort of new technology.
Right? Frustrated by the fact they won't listen to you.
Could be that too. But like Justin Jefferson ordinarily right now would be, or sometime, in the coming weeks after the draft, Justin Jefferson would probably go meet up with Kirk Cousins and those guys would be, running route
Kirk
trees.
would have a throwing camp.
100%.
Absolutely.
Yep. And he'd be working out with Adam Thielen, and he'd be working out with is it Tajay Sharp, the new Vikings wide receiver? And those guys can't do that. You can't work on your timing. So what are the other things you can work on to get up to speed? I don't have the answers, but I am 100% in that there's going to be 5 or 6 teams that figure out more efficient ways to teach and catch guys up to speed on concepts.
Yep.
And those teams have the advantage, and the offenses that have the most built-in cohesion, receivers that have been around for a while, offensive line that's been around for a while. Like those teams are going to have a huge advantage in the first 6 or 7 weeks of the season.
All right, question for you. If you're Kirk, don't you call the team doctors and say, get me a few tests. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get Sharp and Jefferson to my house. We are going to work on things. We're not going to tell a soul. I want them tested. I'll get tested too, just to make sure that we don't spread this thing. Wouldn't you do that?
You could probably fly private too, right? I mean, Kirk can probably just get a little charter.
Absolutely. But I mean, wouldn't you, if you were a quarterback, and I don't care if that's considered cheating or not, wouldn't you do it?
I think to answer your question a different way, Tom Brady clearly had been hanging out with Rob Gronkowski and working out with him behind the scenes.
And he went to his quarterback coach's house.
Yeah, like guys are cutting corners.
But wouldn't you?
So if Kirk needs to cut a corner, I'm okay with it.
Wouldn't you cut corners?
Go cut a corner. Just be 100%. Safe.
Like there's no reason not to. And you're making.
Just don't grill mystery meat for those guys, okay?
Don't be weird. Okay? And he's sort of weird. Don't be weird, but work on stuff.
He strikes me as someone who is not doing bad things. He is literally going right by the book, and no one else would be.
Is Kirk still taking a rock out of his rock bin every month to count down the months until he dies?
This is why I'm crying when Teddy Bridgewater beats the Vikings, because I miss this so much.
If I'm Kubiak, I'm getting tested. I'm going to Kirk's house. I'm getting Jefferson and Sharp there at the least. Thielen, if he chooses,
he'll be fine either way.
Yeah. He's fine. But I'm getting my new guys there, and we are going to work on concepts.
I'm here for it.
And we're going to run routes, and I'm going to help. I'm going to do everything that I possibly can, including cheat, to make sure that Justin Jefferson, the first week he steps on the field of the regular season, is as comfortable as possible.
Yep.
And if that means I've skirted your silly small rules, because this is National Football League, nothing stops me. Like, this is not normal life, then I'm going to skirt your rules.
The NFL already set a precedent too. They didn't do anything to Tom Brady, who was like Tom Brady walked into someone's house in Tampa Bay.
He walked into the wrong guy's house.
Yeah.
He thought he was at Byron Leftowich's house, who's the offensive coordinator for the Bucs.
It's hilarious.
And some guy's like, "What are you doing?"
This is Susan's. Yeah, she lives next door.
All right, that's a wrap on this episode of Purple Daily. I'm Phil Mackey. That's Judd Zulgad, and that's Declan Goff. You can find Mackey and Judd at the podcast
when in doubt, cheat.
as well.
That's Judd's word of the day.
You can find all of our stuff on scorenorth.com. We'll see you guys next time.